G'day guys, this is Rob from Troutlore.com.au, Australia's fly tying specialist store. Today we're tying the Glass Bead Brassie. It's a cracking little midge pattern, great as a point fly on a double nymph rig in our tail race rivers, but also an essential fly for winter lake fishing. Just like its standard counterpart, the Brassie, this one is a simple little midge pattern, but the glass bead up front captures more light to get the fish's attention and adds a little extra weight so it sinks slightly faster. So let's get to it. We're starting off with an Ahrex FW531 hook in size 14, and on that we're putting a glass bead in the crystal or clear colour. So with our bead tweezers, these things are fantastic. Thank you to the guys at Vineyard for making them. We'll just pop that bead on the hook and then insert that into the vise as such. That bead's going to want to keep slipping down. We're actually going to start by tilting down slightly like so, just to keep the bead out of the way until we've got everything else in position. After that, it's a simple process. There's only a couple of other materials. 3 if you count the thread, which we're using 70 Denier black UTC thread. We just start that off behind the hook eye, trim out the excess, and then in comes the main ingredient, copper wire. Here we're using medium wire to suit the size of the hook, and for that we're going to need about 4 or 5 inches of wire. As we go larger hook, you'd use a thicker wire, smaller hook a thinner. And what we want to make sure is that we get this wire all the way up to the bead like so, so that way we have an even base underneath our wraps. And then we just want to gently, not applying too much pressure, wrap down over that so that the wire doesn't twist around the hook shank at all. Again, this all comes down to getting a nice even base so that the wraps come even when you go over the top. Now as we get down to the bend, we'll apply a little more pressure. We want to go about halfway around the bend, which looks like a bit further because of the position that the hook is in. And then we'll start wrapping back up, this time putting more pressure on with our thread to lock that in place, and ending up just behind the hook eye. Then cross wrapping back down, we want our thread to end where the wire starts. Bend that wire out 45 degrees to the hook shank, and then we'll just pop bugger. Okay, so we're just going to straighten our hook out in the vise like so, and then leaving our thread at the rear. As we start wrapping, we're going to wrap behind the thread, putting a fair bit of tension on, especially around the bend of the hook, to make sure that those wraps are nice and close together. It's a little bit fiddly for this first bit, navigating around the bend and dodging the hook point, as well as working around the camera and lights that are in the way here, but we'll get it sorted. There we go, coming up onto the flat now. Now for those of you wondering why I'm choosing to leave this thread in the way, what it's doing is with each wrap is forcing the wire back against the previous wrap. So having that thread up there just puts that little bit of tension and pushes the wire back so they all align nice and evenly next to each other, and gets rid of those unsightly gaps between the wire wraps that we don't really want to see. So it's a little bit fiddly, especially around the bend of the hook, but it does give you a better result. So here we go, we're almost there. You can see once we hit the flat, we start moving and come up to the eye. We want to wrap right up to the behind the bead so that there's no space left. That'll make it more even position for us to wrap the Peacock Herl onto, which is our next material. So we'll do one wrap around the thread one way, another wrap around the thread the other way, and then we can just helicopter that wire out and reposition our hook back up at the angle now that that bead's not going to go anywhere. Then the final material, Peacock Herl. Here we're using it from a Lost Fly pack. It doesn't matter what brand you use, as long as it's good quality stuff. We're only going to need one strand of this, so we'll pick one out, and then taking it at either end, and then one sharp pull will break it at the weakest point. That takes care of the weak spot in that Peacock Herl, so we're not going to run the risk of it breaking while we're wrapping it on. Then capturing that behind the hook eye, we just want to wrap our thread back about the same width as the bead itself, back down over the wire, and then bring it back up. So we're going to apply as many wraps as needed to build up the same bulk as what the bead is doing. From there we just start doing touching wraps of the Peacock Herl, bringing that forward until we come up, jam it up behind the bead, and throw a few extra in for a bit of bulk. Then one wrap behind the Peacock Herl, one wrap in front, give it a little pull just to seat that thread down in between the wire, one wrap behind, one in front, again that little bit of a pull. Then we can just take the Peacock Herl and snap it off cleanly. Once we've done that, to finish it off, we don't want to bulk it up with too much in the way of whip finishes and crush down that Peacock Herl. So we're going to take some Zap in the Plasti-Zap. This is their thinner brush on, slightly thinner viscosity than the standard brush on bottle, and just a touch on the thread at the top there, and then we'll put in a 2-turn whip finish, seat that, and again another 2-turn whip finish, seat that in, and then trim out the excess thread. That's going to be enough to hold that in place. Trout's teeth aren't really going to get down there behind the bead, and that bit of Zap super glue is going to lock those threads in, so we only need those couple of 2-turn whip finishes and it's done. So there you have it. That is the Glass Bead Brassie. Very simple pattern, very effective pattern too. As you can see, that bead captures the light as it spins around, as does the Peacock Herl, and as does the Brassie wire. Now, as always, the material list is down there in the description. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you've got anything to say about it, write a comment. I'll always answer the comments. Happy to answer any questions about materials or anything else. If you just feel like saying hi, just say hi. As always, thanks for watching and happy tying.